Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Looking at linear transformations, and I discussed earlier rank and nullity of a matrix. We want to now discuss rank and nullity of a linear transformation. Linear transformation is a more general notion. Yeah? So every matrix which is M by n, and suppose this is a real matrix, then this gives rise to a linear transformation from Rn to Rn. Okay. There is a null space of this linear transformation, which is set of all vectors u, so that Ta u, which is equal to A times u, is 0, and this is called the null space of the matrix. Yeah. And then the column space of the matrix consists of all linear span of columns of A, and this is the collection of such vectors. There are n columns, so this is how a general linear combination of the n columns looks like, where xi's are real numbers. But this can be thought of as A times x1 xn. So every vector in the linear span of column vectors is of the form Ax, yeah? Ax, where x is in Rn, and this is precisely the image. This is the image of the linear transformation Ta. Okay, so image of linear transformation is exactly the column space, and so the column rank is the dimension of the column space, and therefore it is the dimension of image of Ta. Okay, so rank of the linear transformation therefore will be defined as dimension of the image space, and nullity of the linear transformation will be defined as dimension of the null space. Okay, and we want to prove that the sum of the nullity and the rank of a linear transformation is the dimension of the codomain. Yeah, this is the analog of rank nullity theorem for matrices, which we proved already using the row echelon form or row canonical form. Okay, but let us first discuss how do we construct linear transformation. So you have understood, given a matrix, how to construct a linear transformation associated with that matrix. Okay, we want to now understand how to construct linear transformations in general, because vector spaces may not consist of usual looking vectors. Yeah, usual looking vectors, and the vector spaces can consist of matrices or functions, yeah, or usual vectors. So linear transformations can come in all kinds of shades. We have seen that integration is a linear transformation, differentiation is a linear transformation. Yeah. Then you can also prove that the taking trace of a matrix, square matrix, is also a linear transformation from the vector space of square matrices to the field of scalars. So linear transformations can be constructed in many ways. So let us understand how in general we can construct any linear transformation. So this is given by this proposition. This says that suppose I have two vector spaces. Let us assume that the domain space V is a finite dimensional. One can treat infinite dimensional also, but for simplicity I am taking finite dimensional vector space, and so therefore there is a finite basis V1, V2, Vn. N is the dimension of V, So there is a basis consisting of n vectors. Now we can choose arbitrary vectors w1, w2, wn in the codomain space. Yeah, so linear transformation will be defined from V to W. Okay, so in V we choose a basis, in W we choose arbitrary vectors. Yeah, then there is a unique linear map from V to W which assigns Wi to Vi. Okay, so linear map by this proposition is determined once I know the image of basis vectors. And basis vectors can be assigned arbitrary vectors, and then one can associate this map with a unique linear transformation. So let us see how it is done. So first let us prove the uniqueness. We want to prove that the condition that Vi are mapping to Wi, okay, gives a unique linear transformation. There is only one linear transformation which has this property that the basis vectors Vi's are taken to predetermined vectors Wi from the vector space W. So let us take a vector V. Then we know that V can be uniquely written. Yeah, V can be uniquely written as a linear combination of V1 up to Vn, because V1 up to Vn is a basis. Okay, and then apply T. T is linear. So T of V will be therefore A1 T1 plus AN Tn, and that is equal to A1 W1 plus AN Wn, because TVI is Wi. So this condition that Vi's are taken to Wi determines the image of any vector in V under the action of T. So entire linear transformation is determined once I know the images of basis vectors. Yeah. So this gives that T is uniquely determined by the condition that TVI is Wi. Now let's define T. Yeah. So take a vector V, and where should we take it to? Because we want a linear transformation, TV has no choice but to map to A1 W1 AN Wn. Because once T is defined, it is TV is uniquely determined. So we will define T in this manner. First express V as a unique linear combination of the basis vectors, and then apply T to V and declare this as A1 W1 AN Wn. And you can test that this map is a linear map. Okay, this is very easily proved that this is a linear map. So we have proved existence and uniqueness. And now let me state the rank nullity theorem for linear transformations. So take a linear transformation of vector spaces where I am putting this extra condition that V is finite dimensional vector space. Okay, because if V is not finite dimensional, the numbers, nullity of T, rank of T, they may not be finite numbers. So we cannot talk about this equation. So I am assuming V is finite dimensional, so that nullity of T, which is subspace of V, is also finite dimensional, and we will see that the rank of T is also finite dimensional if V is finite dimensional. Remember, rank T is the dimension of the image. Okay, and nullity of T is the set of all vectors, so that V maps to 0 under the action of T. And we are saying that nullity of T plus nullity of T and rank of T, they add up to dimension of the domain space. Yeah? This is the dimension of domain. And nullity of T is a subspace of V. Yeah? It is all vectors which are mapped to 0. And rank of T is dimension of the image. The image is a subspace of W. Yeah? So we are moving from V to W. Okay, just like here, given a matrix T, and I define a map TA from Rn to Rm. So vectors are mapped to vectors. Vectors with n components are mapped to vectors with m components. So we have abstract linear transformation where I am replacing this by a vector space, replacing this by a vector space. But this V is finite dimensional, and T maps vectors from V to W. The null space of T is here, and the image of T is a subspace here. Yeah. So I can take dimension of the image, that is called the rank of T. I can take dimension of the null space of T, that is called the nullity of T, and these two dimensions add up to dimension of V. That is the rank nullity theorem, and this theorem implies the theorem about rank and nullity of a matrix that we proved earlier. So let us show this in general. Okay, now our vector spaces are abstract. Earlier when I proved rank nullity theorem, the vector spaces were concrete. They were Rn and Rm. Okay. Now let us prove this for arbitrary linear transformations acting on finite dimensional vector space, so that rank and nullity are well defined numbers. So since V is finite dimensional, I assign n to the dimension. Suppose dimension of V is n. Then there is a basis. There is a basis consisting of n vectors. Yeah, there is a basis consisting of n vectors. This should be Vn. Okay, there is a basis consisting of n vectors. This is fine. I was mistaken. N is the dimension of V, and null space of T is a subspace of V, and dimension of subspace is always small, equal to dimension of the whole space. So I can start with a basis of null space of T. Yeah, basis of null space of T. After all, null space of T is contained in the big vector space V, and V is n dimensional, and null space of T is k dimensional. So I can choose a basis. Yeah, every finite dimensional vector space has a basis. Yeah, and then so these are linearly independent elements, and any set of linearly independent elements can be extended to a basis of the whole space. So this basis of the null space I can extend to the basis of the whole space. Inside the null space, yeah, V1 up to V1 were inside the null space, and W1 up to Wn minus k, so they are vectors outside the null space, and I add these vectors to the basis B, and I get a basis of the whole space. Yeah, so V is n dimensional, so a basis of n V contains n vectors. So I extend the basis B to a basis C of the whole vector space. Okay. Now let us show that when I apply T to these vectors, they will form a basis of image of T. Vi's are mapped to 0 under the action of T, because Vi's are in the null space. Yeah, Vi's are in the null space, so they are mapped to 0. So TWI, TW1, TW2, TWn minus k, they are in the image. Yeah, we will prove that these n minus k vectors in the image of T are linearly independent, and the image of T is linear span of TW1, TW2, TWn minus k. Once I show that these vectors are linearly independent and their linear span is image of T, then it will show that this is a basis of image of T, and so rank of T, which is dimension of the image, will be n minus k, and k is the dimension of null space, and that would have proved the theorem that nullity of T and the rank of T, they add up to dimension of V. Okay, so let's proceed. I want to prove these two facts about the set D, that this is a linearly independent set, and these are their linear span is the image of V. Okay. Now any vector V can be expressed as a linear combination of basis vectors V1 up to Vk and W1, W2 and Wn minus k. They form a basis of V, so there are unique scalars alpha i's and beta i's, so that V can be written like this. Now T is a linear transformation, so Tv will be alpha 1 T1, alpha k Tvk, and plus beta 1 Tw1, beta n minus k Twn minus k. But Tv1, Tvk, they are 0, because Vi's are in the null space, and therefore Tv is equal to beta 1 Tw1, beta n minus k Twn minus k, and this is a linear combination of Twi's, and therefore this is in the linear span of Tw1, Twn minus k. Okay, but the image consists of all the vectors of the type Tv. Yeah, image of T is set of all vectors Tv, and therefore this is the linear span of TW1, TWn minus k. And this shows that the image T is linear span. Now I want to prove that they are linearly independent. Okay. So to prove that they are linearly independent, I have to take a linear combination of these vectors, and then which becomes 0, and then show that this linear combination is a trivial linear combination. So I take a linear combination of these vectors, okay, but T is linear transformation, therefore this is equal to this, and suppose this is equal to 0. Yeah, if it is equal to 0, then this vector beta 1 W1 beta n minus k Wn minus k, this is mapped to 0, and therefore this is in the null space of T. Okay. Once the vector is in the null space, then I know a basis of null space, and therefore this vector is a unique linear combination of vectors in the basis of null space of T, and therefore this is in the null space, and therefore there exist unique scalars alpha 1, alpha 2, alpha k, so that this is linear combination of VI's, because this vector is in null space. But then now you see, look at this equation. This gives a linear relation among basis elements of V. V1, V2, Vk and W1, Wn minus k, that constitutes a basis, and in a basis vectors are linearly independent. But this is a linear relation among these. So that implies that all alpha i's are 0 and all beta i's are equal to 0. We wanted to just prove that TW1, TW2, TWn minus k, they are linearly independent. And but this equation says that all the beta i's are 0, all alpha i's are 0. And that proves the linear independence of the set D. And we already showed that their linear span is the image of T. And therefore, image of T is linear span of n minus k vectors. And so this shows that the rank of T, rank of T is equal to n minus k, which is dimension of V minus dimension of the null space of T, and that implies the rank nullity theorem. Now I want to define the important concept of coordinate vectors with respect to a basis. Why do we want to do that? Vector spaces can be abstract. They can consist of functions or matrices or vectors or all kinds of things constitute vector spaces. But in order to do computations in a vector space, we have to set up a coordinate system. Just like in analytic geometry, we set up a coordinate system, the Cartesian coordinate system, and then geometric objects are defined by equations. We manipulate equations and then deduce nice things about geometry. So this is what happens in analytic geometry. Geometric objects are represented by equations. We manipulate equations using algebra and derive properties of the geometric shapes. Now we want to study abstract vector spaces of functions or matrices or all kinds of things. And in order to do computation in abstract vector space, we have to set up a coordinate system. And that coordinate system is set up by using a basis. So every element of a vector space, whether it is a function or a matrix or a vector, will acquire coordinate vector, and it will be unique vector. And then we can do computations using these coordinate vectors. So it is defined with respect to a basis. So let's see how it is done. So take a finite dimensional vector space of dimension n by ordered basis. Okay, basis is not ordered by definition. Basis just consists of linearly independent vectors whose linear span is the whole space. So we don't impose any ordering, but in order to construct coordinates of vectors, we must fix an order. So by an ordered basis of V, we mean a sequence V1, V2, Vn of distinct vectors, so that these are linearly independent. And the dimension of the vector space is n. So we take a basis and then order the vectors in that basis. Just like in three-dimensional vector space, we often think of ijk as the ordered basis, where ijk are the unit vectors along the direction of x-axis, y-axis, z-axis. So similarly, if I have an abstract vector space, I pick a basis and give an order to the basis elements, that is the ordered basis. Now take any vector. I want to assign coordinates to that vector. Then because v1 up to vn is a basis, I can write u as a unique linear combination of v1 up to vn as a1 v1 plus a2 v2 plus an vn, where ai's are scalars. The field of scalars I am writing as f. Field of scalars can be real field or complex field, or it can be finite field, okay, or field of rational numbers. So I fix a field of scalars for my vector space, fix an ordered basis, then every vector is uniquely determined as a linear combination. So I get these scalars a1, a2, an. Yeah. So input is a vector u in v. Output are these scalars. Okay. Output are these scalars u a1 up to an. They are called the coordinates of the vector u. This is what happens in any vector in R3 also, right? I fix a vector and then find its coordinates x, y, z. But then this vector u is actually xi plus yj plus zk. Okay, so ijk is an ordered basis of three elements of a basis, standard basis of R3, and I fix that order. Then I derive the coordinates of vectors. Okay, so that vector is the tip. That point, those coordinates are indicating the coordinates of the tip of the vector. Okay, so we carry out this process now abstractly by fixing an ordered basis. Take a vector in V and write it as a linear combination of the vectors in the ordered basis, and then these collect the scalars. Okay, then the coordinate vector of u with respect to this ordered basis B is simply the column vector a1, a2, an. Yeah, so we have taken the process in R3, abstracted it for any finite dimensional vector space. So u could be a function, right? U could be sine x or cosine x, and then we suppose I take sine x and cosine x. Of course, we can prove that they are linearly independent. Sine x and cosine x are linearly independent functions. So I can now take an arbitrary function which is a linear combination of sine x and cosine x and talk about its coordinate vector. Just like here, we have abstract vector space and ordered basis, and then AIs are representing u in a unique way, and I extract the coefficients and make a vector. Okay, this vector is a column vector. It has n components, so it is in Fn. So if my vector space was real vector space, I am producing a vector in the ordinary real vector space Rn. Okay, and this vector, this coordinate vector is represented by u, and since it depends on the basis B, we put B as a subscript. Okay, so the coordinate vector of u with respect to the basis B is a1 up to an. So input is a vector in abstract vector space. Output is a vector in a concrete vector space Fn. Okay, so if my vector space was say 3-dimensional, if V was 3-dimensional real vector space, then this correspondence will give me vectors in R3. So input will be a vector in V and output will be vector in R3, and the three elements are coordinates of V with respect to a fixed basis B. So I have put coordinates in my abstract vector space, and the coordinates are taken from Fn. Okay. Now this process you can easily show that if I take two vectors u and v, add them, and then take the coordinate, then this is the sum of coordinates of u and v. Similarly, if I take a scalar multiple of v and then take the coordinates with respect to b, that is a times the coordinate of v with respect to b. Okay, yeah. So this is suppose I define this map from v to Fn, take a vector v, and tv is equal to coordinate of v with respect to an ordered basis. Okay, so these two facts are simply saying that T is a linear transformation. Okay, they are saying T is a linear transformation because the first equation says that T respects addition. Second equation says T respects scalar multiplication. So the process of coordinatization of a vector space gives me a linear transformation. V mapping to TV, where TV is the coordinate vector of V with respect to B, is a linear transformation. Yeah. So here I fixed the basis V. Now suppose I take another basis C. Yeah. So that will also produce coordinate vectors, but they will be with respect to C. The question arises, what is the relation between coordinate vectors of U with respect to one basis and the coordinate vectors of U with respect to another basis? Yeah, they are both column vectors, right? So from V, I have two pathways, Fn and again Fn. So here I take U and map it to the coordinate vector of U with respect to B, but I can take a vector basis vector C, basis C, and associate the coordinate of U with respect to C. So what is the connection between this vector and this vector? So that connection will be defined by a matrix, and which will be mapping vectors in Fn to vectors in Fn. Okay, so if I know coordinates with respect to one basis, how do I find coordinates with respect to another basis? Of course, you can write the definition, but we can have an algorithm that once I know coordinates of a vector with respect to one fixed basis, I can determine the coordinate with respect to another basis, yeah, by an algorithm. So I want to describe that algorithm to you. Okay, this is the algorithm is based on a matrix which is called the change of basis matrix or transition matrix from C to B. So so C and B are both bases of the same vector space, and I want to now write a matrix which represents change of basis. Yeah. So the change of basis from C to B is a n by n matrix. Okay. So how to construct this n by n matrix? I am describing the column vectors of this matrix. So take so B. Remember what was B? B was consisting of V1 up to Vn. Okay, and C is consisting of U1 up to Un. Yeah. So the vectors U1, yeah, take the coordinate with respect to B, take U2, which is coordinate with respect to B, and then take the coordinate vector of Un with respect to B. Okay, so let me recall. B is V1 up to Vn, V is V1 to Vn, and C is U1 to Un. We are passing from C to B. Okay, we want to change, we are passing from C to B. So this is a transition matrix from C to B. So in this transition matrix, I am taking coordinate vectors of these basis vectors with respect to V1 up to Vn. Yeah, I can find coordinate vector of any vector with respect to any basis. Yeah, so the elements of C, which are UIs, I can write their coordinate vectors with respect to B, and the coordinate vectors have n components. So I get these n column vectors U1b, U2b, Mnb, and this is called the transition matrix from C to B. Okay, so so I started with a basis C, and the elements of C I'm writing in terms of basis B by using their coordinate vectors. So these are coordinate vectors of C, elements of C with respect to basis B. Okay, so this is called MCB, transition matrix from C to B. So keep that in mind. How to construct transition matrix when we are transiting from vectors in C to vectors in B. So take vectors of C and write their coordinate vector with respect to the basis B, and take these n column vectors and construct the matrix. So here is the result, which says that the coordinate vector of U with respect to the basis C, okay, if I operate this matrix, which is transition from C to B, will produce the coordinate vector of U with respect to B. Yeah. So we have these two bases, C and B. So it is saying that input is coordinate vector of U with respect to basis C. The output is coordinate vector of the same vector with respect to basis B. Then the coordinates with respect to basis B can be obtained from coordinate vectors with respect to basis C by pre-multiplying this coordinate vector with this transition matrix MCB. Okay, so let us prove that. So first write down the coordinate vector of U with C. Okay, suppose this is the coordinate vector. What does it mean? It means u is equal to a1, yeah, a1, and the vector c consists of u1 plus an un. Okay, that is u. Then the coordinate vector of u with respect to c is a1 up to an, this column vector. Okay, so this is the equation, yeah. But taking coordinate vectors is a linear transformation. So taking coordinate vectors of this linear combination of ui's, yeah, is really a1 coordinate vector of u1 with respect to b, an coordinate vector of un with respect to b. So what is it? This is a linear combination of column vectors of MCB. u1b, unb, they are coordinate vectors of MCB, and I'm taking this linear combination. Okay, so therefore, this is really MCB acting on a1 up to an, right? This is MCB acting on a1 up to an. This matrix acting on this vector is also the linear combination of column vectors of the transition matrix. So we have proved the formula that coordinate vectors of u with respect to basis B can be obtained from coordinate vectors of u with respect to C by pre-multiplying by the transition matrix from C to B. Okay, yeah. Okay, let's take an example. Okay, so take V3, take V equal to the three-dimensional Cartesian space R3, and I have two bases, V1, V2, V3. These three vectors, you can check, they are linear independent, and these are the standard basis vectors. E1, E2, En, E3 are the standard basis vectors. So I have these two basis vectors, and I want to write the transition matrix from one basis to another. So take these two ordered bases, V1 up to V3 and U1 up to U3. Okay. What is the transition matrix MCB? I write vectors in C, okay, and take their coordinate vectors with respect to B. That is MCB. So U1, take this vector U1. U1 has to be written, the first column vectors of the transition matrix will be coordinate vector of U1. So I have to write U1 as a unique linear combination of these three vectors. So 1, 0, 0 can be written as V1 minus V2 plus 0 times V3. So this is the column vector. This is the coordinate vector of U1 with respect to B. Similarly, I write the coordinate vector of U2 with respect to B, and the third column is coordinate vector of U3 with respect to B. Okay, yeah. So let's take this. This is the transition matrix. Before I can start converting coordinate vectors with respect to one basis to another, I have to first write the transition matrix. Then I take arbitrary vector 2, 3, 4. Yeah. Then the coordinate vectors of 2, 3, 4 with respect to C. C is this standard basis vectors, and therefore coordinate vector of U with respect to C is this vector itself. Yeah. Now I want to write the coordinate vector of U with respect to this new basis B. So you pull out the transition matrix and operate this on the coordinate vector of U with respect to C. I get 2, 1, 1. So this says that this vector is really 2 times V1 plus V2 plus V3. And you can check this is true. Okay. So I explained the algorithm to convert the coordinate vectors with respect to one basis into coordinate vectors with respect to another basis. And so this is an algorithm. We find the transition matrix, and then I can apply the multiply the transition matrix to the old coordinate vector. The output will be new coordinate vector with respect to new basis. Okay. Now let's observe this very important fact that I have these two bases C and B. I can talk about transition matrix from C to B or transition matrix from B to C. Okay. This proposition says that these two matrices are inverses of each other. MCB, the transition matrix from C to B, is inverse of transition matrix from B to C. So in particular, it says that the transition matrices are invertible. Yeah, transition matrices are invertible, and we know their inverse also. Yeah, so inverse will be another transition matrix. So let us prove that. Okay, so to prove that this matrix this matrix is inverse of this matrix. I just multiply these two matrices in two ways, or even one way is enough. We have seen that, and prove that it is the identity matrix. So take M to be MBC and take N to be NCB, and I want to multiply these two and show that it is identity. Yeah, we need to show that Mn equal to Nm equal to identity. So to prove that some matrix is identity, I can operate that matrix, yeah, on arbitrary vectors and show that I get the same vector back. To prove that Mn is identity, I will operate Mn on arbitrary vector and show that I get the same vector. Yeah. So take any vector in V, write the coordinates with respect to B. Okay. So coordinate with respect to B is the transition matrix MCB times coordinate with respect to C. Okay. And coordinate with respect to C is the transition matrix M, yeah, MBC operating on coordinate with respect to B. Okay. So therefore, if I take any arbitrary vector, then the coordinate vector UB is N times UC, but UC is equal to M times UB. So UB is equal to NM times UB. So therefore, NM has to be identity matrix, because this is equal to identity matrix operating on UB. Okay, right? So therefore, these two matrices, when they are acting on arbitrary vectors in V, the answer is identity map. Okay, and similarly, we can prove that Mn operating on UC is equal to UC itself. So therefore, Mn and Nm, they multiply to identity matrix. So inverse of a transition matrix is again a transition matrix. Yeah, transition matrix from C to B is inverse of transition matrix from B to C. Okay, so transition matrices are in particular, they are invertible matrices. Now I want to talk about matrices and linear transformation. Yeah, so we have talked about linear transformation which are induced by matrices. Yeah, and we have talked about the rank nullity theorem for a linear transformation. Now we want to associate a matrix with respect of a linear transformation. Essentially, we want to show that all linear transformations, they are induced by certain matrices. Okay. So study of matrices will be therefore a special case of study of linear transformations. The reason is that matrices become too complicated. Yeah. And many times their qualitative study reduces to qualitative study of linear transformations where we don't carry so much data with us. Yeah. So to understand matrices, sometimes we just take the linear transformation induced by them, invoke some nice results for linear transformation, and get the same results for matrices. Okay. So we want to associate a matrix to a linear transformation. And this we do by assuming that two vector spaces V and W are finite dimensional. We fix a basis of domain space and a basis of codomain space. And we have a linear transformation from V to W. So only thing I am assuming is that V and W are finite dimensional. T is a linear transformation. I fix a ordered basis of both these vector spaces, and out of T I want to extract a matrix. Okay, the matrix will have all the information about this linear transformation. Okay, it will have all the information. So computation with linear transformation can be reduced to computing with matrices. Okay, that is the purpose. So how do we associate a matrix to a linear transformation? Okay, so I fix a basis E of V, fix a basis F of W. The purpose is to introduce coordinates in V and W. V and W are abstract vector spaces, but once I have an ordered basis, I can set up a coordinate system. Okay, I described how to set up a coordinate system in a vector space. So we fix a ordered basis of V and ordered basis of W, so that any vector will have coordinates with respect to those bases.